Utopia, but we may have to go through dystopia first. And I'm not talking 10 years, 20, 50. I'm talking, let's go way off. We're in the relative dark ages. We could be far more advanced as a species, as a country, as all countries. We're not yet in this point of being able to agree what the highest and the best net outcome for everyone is. We're still arguing with each other.
The UK is spending tens of billions of dollars to make it become an AI superpower. But nobody really knows what that means for jobs, democracy, or the future of the country.
I think it's a hub of innovation. You've said about the investment over the last couple of days, which is incredible. What's it, $31 billion? And then other big tech giants are also putting billions in. You've got things like the Ellison Institute for Technology with Larry Ellison putting money into a new Oxford campus for developing the most sophisticated research facilities on the planet. So a data protection officer, it's the individual that has a statutory responsibility to look after the personal data that an organisation uses or processes. It's my job to know where is that data, what is that data, who has access to that data, when is it being deleted, how are we monitoring that data, what's the security around that data.
Baseline.
The baseline is designed to create an emotional response.
I've seen things you won't believe.
More human than human. Make you question everything.
We're joined today by James Robson. He has served as the Data Protection Officer for the current UK government, the Labour Party, between 2023 and 2025. His role was protecting and securing one of the most important assets to the country, which is data about you, data about the people. Today we're going to get into the real-world impact of AI and data at a national level.
A data protection officer, yeah. So it's the individual that has a statutory responsibility to look after the personal data that an organisation uses or processes. So it's written into law. Are we using it in the way that is within the expectation of the individual whose data we are using? Are we telling them? And are we doing the correct risk assessments around how we use that data? And also, it's my job to know where is that data, what is that data, who has access to that data, when is it being deleted, how are we monitoring that data, what's the security around that data. I guess worries about that whole structure is you have these great ideas that politicians do have, trust me, they do, but then implementation in an already moving, huge moving, multiple moving part machine, which is what a government department is. Well, how does that trickle down?
I've worked in psychometric firms before,
Yeah.
as I understand it. Indeed, we were the very first people to apply the GDPR regulation back in 2016.
Yeah.
I mean, GDPR itself played to trying to solve some of these problems around consent, withdrawal of consent, the selling of data. You know, do you think GDPR has worked, or is it already outdated based on this high velocity algorithmic way of proliferating information?
It worked. And it can continue to work. It's definitely misrepresented by lots of people that misunderstand it. And lots of people think, oh, it's this data protection thing. I could do that. We don't need a specialist or professional. I'll echo the words of the ICO's Information Commissioner, or now about to become the Information Commission, and I think he becomes chair. This is from the new act from this year. But John Edwards really stuck with me. The Data Protection Act of 2018 and the UK GDPR are data sharing manifestos. That's what he said. And I'm like, yes, they are. 100%. Why are we not sharing more data? But everyone's gone, I understand the GDPR. It means we can't share the data. And I'm like, no. It's completely the opposite. You just share the data in a privacy protecting way. You're protecting people. What's the endpoint consequence of something going wrong in the process of sharing that data or using that data? That's what you look at. How could it affect you, me? Maybe not get benefits, not get access to my social care records, have that used in a large language model because they're trying to work out how to target people with certain commercial products because they think they're a child in care. It's like, whoa, wait a second, not good, not right. Who oversees that?
Well, who determines what's morally right and wrong?
That's another question, the moral right and wrong of it, but it comes down to a pragmatic use and secure access to the data, which is what the data protections officer job is.
I can't help feeling that another election is probably looming. You know, we're going into a preparation cycle, which will mean data is currently being harvested, analysed, leveraged. What's your feeling on how people best protect themselves in that process and not become a product of a large scheme of manipulation?
This is a great question. I'm really glad you brought this one up for me, because there's nothing further than the truth than what you've said. There is no harvesting. There is no monitoring in the ways that you may think, oh my God, AI is just going to grab it all and look at it all, and we're going to get manipulated into thinking a different way about a certain party or political way of thinking because the AI bots are generating this content that is directly for me to be manipulated. Does not happen. I say that categorically. Does not happen. But how do you protect yourself? Well, what if there is a nefarious political actor out there that is going, well, we've tapped into all the ad tech, and so whenever you click a cookie and accept a cookie, for example, we're dropping maybe a pixel so we can track where you go and what you think, and we know whether or not you are right-leaning, left-leaning, this-leaning, whatever, and then we can target you. Well, I'm not saying it's not possible for that to happen, but there's not the technical resource to manage such a scheme that I'm aware of. Doesn't exist. We are years behind where we possibly could be with that, and where you may assume we are, but it's not true.
Well, tell me, there's a huge amount of leveraging of US technology. Companies like Palantir are now deeply engaged in the NHS and others. Where do you sit on this idea of leveraging sovereign technology for sovereign data? And how do the regulations sit on that?
It's very difficult to go sovereign data, sovereign technology, because we've missed that boat. It's gone. There's data centers all over the world. There's 220 Microsoft data centers, possibly more now since a talk I went to a number of years ago from the head of data. But where do you think our data is? It's in computers somewhere else, in the cloud. Trying to keep it within our borders is actually close to impossible. I mean, you've got the likes of, you can work out where a data center is if you're, on a Google or Azure or an AWS. You can have those settings. It will be in this data center here. That's fine. But still an American headquartered organization that theoretically sometimes may need an engineer to help you, and they may be in California. But that's the world we live in. But I'm not shying away from going, well, that's great. I love that. Why don't we keep it within our borders? keep it within our technology and our technologists. But there are opportunities for amazing British technologists to go and get amazingly paid jobs in other incredible places around the world. So the ship's sailed, I think, and we're in the global sphere. I'm 100% supportive of British businesses doing things within Britain and within our data centers that we have here, and maybe smaller providers. But the reality is the ship sailed.
We're past the era of going pre-globalization. We're comfortable globalization, like we're there and there's no way back. I've seen a narrative recently that's kind of been along the lines of we need to resist the overwhelming adoption of foreign technology vendors and focus on open source, local technology companies. And I have moved around on this because in the UK we have some amazing technology. ARM being one out of Cambridge, like you go to Cambridge, you speak, they're way ahead. But there was a point where I saw this drifting to leveraging sovereignty and identity as a reason why we shouldn't be buying foreign technology assets. And I saw logic in that. However, my belief is if we're going to be competitive within an accepted global market, we should be picking and choosing the best technology and talent from anywhere in the world. And if, like we've seen in the last 48 hours, those companies, like the big global US companies, are prepared to partner and work with UK companies, brilliant. That's like a really great outcome for me.
Yeah. I think it comes down to not necessarily where the technology is coming from, but the transparency of how that organization manages its own technology stack. What's the supply chain that gives you that front end of a lovely graphical user interface? What access does it give you if something goes wrong? What access does... So, good example is this. I think it was yesterday I spotted that even LinkedIn is now going to be training its own AI system on your posts to either push more content that it feels that you want to see your way, or for whatever other reason. And you can opt in, opt out. But that's happening quite ubiquitously within even the bigger platforms that are being sold into kind of corporations and organizations to use that. So, I don't even necessarily think it is political as in it is part of politics. It is more political in terms of how much can you know about how they use it and how they allow access to it and how they control that. And we'll get down to nitty gritty of, well, it's the monitoring the metadata and the alerts in some sort of outsourced security operations center that goes, there was an access over here that shouldn't have happened. What should we do? Do they have that kind of overlay and oversight and insight? So you end up just getting down to the nitty gritty of the lines of code of what's going on within the system, rather than it being kind of this larger, it's politics that are saying X, Y, Z. It's not. It's actually still down to the individual to go, do I trust this vendor? Do I not? No matter of where the sovereignty is. Of course, there will be geopolitical ramifications around maybe you're using a nefarious actor technology that happens to be in a country that, has sanctions. Do you even know it's that, or have they hidden the fact that it's being run out of one of those sanctioned countries? So, where's the transparency of all that kind of stuff?
Transparency, oversight, essential. Microsoft have just pledged 30 billion to UK AI infrastructure. I mean, I find that quite reassuring and comforting that we are partnering with the best technology, some of the best technology companies on the planet. So I actually feel comfortable and positive about those headlines. How do we ensure that we retain oversight. I think you mentioned this oversight point. How do we do that in that scenario?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm a big fan of the AI Opportunities Action Plan that the government pushed out. But built into that was the mechanisms for oversight. What do you need to see? How do you need to see it? When do you need to see it? Who needs... And the sphere I'm in, you've got all these data protection officers that are now going, right, we're going to skill up and become AI officers, AI governance officers. And we're not too sure who is going to end up taking the mantle of being the AI officer, but I think it is the data protection specialist. It just feeds really nicely into that. And the oddity there is, the conformity assessment, who's best placed to do that? Probably the person that's done a data protection impact assessment that understands not only how a law is built and structured, how technology and technology stacks and SQL databases are structured, and being able to have that interpretation between the design of the AI, the designers, and probably the highest standards of law around AI, which in my mind at this point is the EU AI Act. We don't have that, it's not implemented, but it's a good structure to follow. That should become the global standard. GDPR basically become the global standard, the bar to hit that, you should be okay. Who should have oversight? Yeah, it's a whole other industry of governance professionals.
Can you help people understand when the UK government says they want the UK to be an AI superpower? What does that actually mean?
Great question. I think it's a hub of innovation. So, you've said about the investment of the last couple of days, which is incredible. What's it, $31 billion? And then other big tech giants are also putting billions in. You've got things like the Ellison Institute for Technology with Larry Ellison putting money into a new Oxford campus for developing the most sophisticated research facilities on the planet. It's that kind of stuff. Attract the talent. Make it lovely. Make it beautiful. I've seen the layout of what that kind of institute is going to be. It's amazing. In my mind, it's the kind of the British version of MIT, but EIT, with what he's pumping his billions into as he becomes an older man. Attract the talent. Get the right people here. Have it exciting. Have this innovative but protective approach in the UK, and you'll have these tech hubs just popping up and going like, oh, I want to go work there. And I'm an engineer in Australia at the moment, just with starry-eyed, Britain, this place, this locale, I'm treated well. I can sit on beanbags if I want. Maybe that's a bit of an old concept, but that's how you do it.
I was amazed at how fresh and exciting Cambridge feels. So I was back in Cambridge in 2000 working for British Antarctic Survey. I remember I loved Cambridge because it's flat, so you can cycle around everywhere.
Yeah.
Going back this last few months to see John Fletcher at Innovation Game and Cambridge University, it has had so much money invested in it. Like the whole area around the train station, the university, it's fresh, it's clean, it's safe. I mean, I want to go back. I want to go back. Mm-hmm. I genuinely feel so positive about Cambridge right now. But, just to circle back, you go onto YouTube, all you see is, millionaires are leaving the UK for Dubai, Labour government's alienating entrepreneurs. What the algorithm, to depersonalize, isn't pushing is Larry Ellison's investment in Cambridge, innovation centres, opportunity, positivity and growth, which I didn't even know about. And I speak to people every week about this. So why are people being compounded with negativity and not being enabled with positivity?
Nail on the head. That's what you've hit. Exactly. What amazing things are going on in this country? Why on earth don't we know about it? Everything from the new dog walker business that somebody set up because they love dogs and grooming dogs and taking dogs out, so happy about this. To get your message out for being a startup that is so excited about being a startup, it's nigh on impossible for that to be picked up by any local media, no matter how much good you're doing in the world. And I take that one maybe small example, but take examples of all the innovations that are going on, like you've just said, all those investments. We have the announcement, might get on TV, might be spoken at a podium, wonderful. 10 seconds later, we're back to watching the negativity, the contention, the disturbing images sometimes, because the algorithm realizes and the dopamine hit machines realize that we'll continue watching the car crash in slow motion.
With your experience of GDPR, do you believe there should be some equivalent regulatory control over context of data? And what I'm proposing here, just in this conversation, is that GDPR was the context of personal data and private sensitive information.
Mm-hmm.
What we seem to be suggesting is we have a bigger problem with data in the form of video or articles or news, where the context is compounding negativity. Should there try and be some form of control over that? Because I look at teenagers growing up into this world being compounded from all different angles with negativity and control and contrarianism. That it doesn't feel like a healthy place to be.
I agree. I'm deeply, deeply saddened by that. Deeply saddened. It's warping our sense of reality, where the Overton window of what I grew up, maybe I felt the world was, in the UK, was maybe a better place back then. But actually, again, having conversations like this, I'm like, no, there's still passion and excitement and people want it. They just don't think it's here because all they see is this contention. One of the laws that has been passed recently and become enforceable is the Online Safety Act, which again has got a lot of, opposing views around that. You need to have age verification to access certain sites if you're a child. Now, that was a law that came in during the Conservative period of government, but it had the period of it will be enacted and enforceable a few years later. So the Labour Party have to see that through, because that's how Parliament works and how law passing works. So there's a trial. I'm going to have to call it a trial of, yes, we need to monitor the context of what people are seeing. And probably there needs to be a point where the volume that people are allowed to see may need to be monitored. Because, I get thoughts if I go back to another movie, 28 Days Later, where you've got the monkey sitting in front of all the screens whilst they're being injected with the rage virus to turn them into some sort of a zombie. But then, it is that whole idea of you watch too much crazy stuff. Again, we get into the Quentin Tarantino
Clockwork
concept,
Orange.
all of that. And we're like, wait a minute, we're now the experimental bunnies sitting there watching all this stuff and taking it with us if we're not in a place within ourselves to be mature enough to go, that's what that is. That's not going to affect my emotional state or my personal output with another person. I'm not going to project it onto another person because I've seen some really disturbing stuff, or I've seen a lot of not quite disturbing stuff, but enough of it, and I'm a bit mangled in my mind, and it's a filter with how I'm living my day-to-day life. Because,
do you think many people carry that mangled mind as a private burden?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%.
Fear,
100%.
concern,
yeah,
anxiety.
So sad. So sad. I mean, and we're not necessarily taught how to combat that.
How would you advise people to combat it? I mean, you've seen, data protection and oversight at the highest level in the country. What would you be suggesting to people to do Is it taking time away from devices? Is it making sure you're open and speaking and transparent about the things that you're seeing and you're concerned about? I don't know what the solution is really.
Yeah. So
I know it's not for you to solution.
I had to solutionize the planet now. Let's go. I know what works for me. And I used to be a massive evangelist of like maybe the new health fad thing. I'm not in that. I'm no longer in that place because different strokes, different folks. Of course, that's absolutely how it should work. I mean, I'm a fully qualified yoga teacher, 500-hour qualified. I taught hot power yoga for 3 years. And that was an enlightening and lifting experience. And then I started to do Vipassana meditation, which is 10-day silent meditation retreats where no devices, no books, no eye contact, even though there's people all around you. It's split into male-female sections, so you're completely separated from any stimulation. And you start meditating from about 4:30 in the morning, 10 hours a day, 10 days straight.
One of the biggest challenges across all of life is the ability to self-regulate.
Yeah.
And that's been a problem forever, whether it was people binge drinking or binge watching box sets. You see that manifestation of the lack of ability to regulate across many demographics and people who are trying to cope. But I think that if you can get to a point where you can self-regulate, that's a great place to be, because then you have a sense of control.
100%. So it's really worth reading the latest Yuval Noah Harari book, Nexus, because there's a big section in there. A lot of it is referenced a lot, is these self-regulating machines. And our bodies are self-regulating machines. We do it unconsciously. It's not a conscious thing. But also the institutions that we have are self-regulating machines. Those institutions are the same ones that are building these kind of AI technologies, these new systems and processes of using data for better insights and things. And even government departments, I mean, what do they use? They've got think tanks that are feeding them policy. They spend money on research organizations to ask questions on their behalf and get some deeply evidence-based research to go, is this idea we've got any good? Go out and find out for us. And that is kind of quantitative analysis, qualitative analysis, interviews, meetings, statistics, all put together for very intelligent individuals to do the analysis, come back in a report and say, this thing you thought was great, let's not do that because the feeling is this from people. The statistics actually say this, and if you extrapolate outwards over the long term, it won't deliver what you think it might deliver. So those are the self-regulating machines. And government does do that. Before I was DPO for Labour, I was DPO for something called the Evidence Quarter and working in a system called the What Works Network. The organisation actually employed me into that was called What Works for Children's Social Care. I was like, great. When I got there, I'm like, why on earth don't people know about these organisations? This is amazing. And it's almost like beautiful people coming together. They're going to love me for saying that. But coming together and going, let's work on a problem. Maybe a social worker in a school, has that reduced the harm coming to the children that may be in care that are in that school? Does it work?
Why do people not know about these things?
Oh, my goodness. Back to the whole thing. That's my frustration. Back to the whole conversation we just had about it's not being pushed. We're at the sort of pinnacle of, it's not just good news isn't popular. It's just not being pushed at all. It's not being given the opportunity for people to go like, I wouldn't mind just find out a bit more.
Everybody is improving with critical thinking, I think, because there are so many more choices on media consume, this sort of thing. It's just so obvious that mainstream legacy news is so politically biased. It's obvious.
Yeah.
And I don't even need to call it out because you watch it and it's obvious it's not objective, it's not baselined, it is highly biased, and everybody can see it. And what people do, I believe, is just disassociate and don't watch it.
Yeah.
Which is why, and their own ridiculous bias has driven will ultimately drive their own demise, which I think is a real shame, because they can't see past their own need to be relevant and their own point of view to be the only one. Like, where has open, respectful discourse gone, where we can all get in a room, we can talk about things in a respectful, human way, where we respect people as a person? They may have different views to us, they may have different ideas. Indeed, my ideas and views change all the time. So why have we got to this point where your sheer identity exists purely because of a perception or an idea, which, if at conflict, then you're in very, like, the conflict that's caused because of that is just, it feels so destructive and unnecessary.
Why are we not allowed to grow? Why is one viewpoint that we had when we were maybe younger than we are now, and then something happens, something changes, we learn a bit more, we go, okay, I understand why I thought that then, I don't think that anymore. Isn't that just going through independent growth anyway? I don't get it. And then you get locked into, well, that is it, that's what you thought, that's the thing. I'm like, well, people change, people develop, allow for that. But we've become really broken from allowing ourselves to develop. And again, it's another thing that's like, I'm saddened about it. Like, critical thinking, yeah, definitely, please, all viewpoints. But we find ourselves being funneled into one viewpoint more than the other, and the balance of bias doesn't balance.
I mean, the UK has spent huge amounts of money with the Alan Turing Institute analysing bias in AI. You know, we have a very good understanding now of LLMs, and we have critical analysis of LLMs, which is brilliant, I think. As AI now starts to become much more integrated into government and private sector and business, which I firmly believe is unstoppable, there is a concern around job displacement, job losses. How is that going to be handled at a national level, do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough one. I mean, when you've got reports, you know, I read in the Sunday Times last week that, you know, the big four consultancies are now not bringing aboard as many grads or sponsoring grads through university as much now, because they don't need that period of learning for a new grad coming into the workplace, because AI is just replacing it. How do you do that on a national level? I mean, nobody has the answer. I mean, I went to an ed tech conference as well, and you know, had a close to one-to-one with like an AI guru. I won't say the chap's name. And my direct question was, what are the next jobs? If AI is going to take our jobs, what are the next jobs? Because obviously there'll still be jobs, still be stuff to be done. We just don't know what they are. Ask him directly, you know, what is it? And he just dodged the question. It's like, yeah, you don't know because nobody knows.
Yeah, as soon as somebody calls themselves an AI guru, I think that my modern people would say there's red flags. There's red flags. Because I think, to your point, this stuff is unfolding so quickly.
Yeah.
And it's accelerating because it's developing and enhancing itself. Like, I'm clinging on, like, by my fingertips with the people at the front to try and learn and keep up to date with it. It's phenomenally exciting. But I think anybody who's prepared to say, I'm an expert and an AI guru, I immediately would be like, okay.
Yeah.
And there are out there, and huge respect for everybody in this space who's trying to have open communication. So the job point, I think, is really interesting. If graduates are having to look at alternative routes that don't go into a graduate scheme, because the graduates were always seen as the future executives. So if they're not coming in at the bottom of the pyramid, like a traditional enterprise was very much vertically hierarchical.
Where do you force them? Where do you force them?
Where do they go in, and who is going to replace the higher tiers with the depth of experience and knowledge and values of the organization as they've lived through it. Did you see?
I'm completely with you. So, as you're saying it, I'm imagining we're forcing those younger people to get super innovative themselves. So they'll be the ones like, okay, I'm smart. I can't go to Deloitte anymore, even though I really want to.
I'm going to create my own business consulting firm using AI.
I'm going to create my own business using AI. And so you may end up with these boutiques just popping up. One person, solopreneurs that are 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds going, you know what, I've got an idea around this little sector. I'm going to just put this idea out there. I still live on the bank of mum and dad. I got a couple of years to take a run at it. What if they work? Oh, what if they work? Then you'll have the giants going, let me buy your company.
This is happening. This is happening all over. And I've got a really interesting question for you here, because one thing I've learned from the amazing, incredible people I've had on Baseline is, from an entrepreneur's perspective, don't just assess what the world needs right now, but imagine what the world will become and assess what that needs. And if we follow this practical trajectory of large incumbents being first of all, starting to leverage AI and therefore not bringing in fresh, graduate, intelligent, recently educated individuals, and they go off and do their own businesses, you end up with a proliferation of small, highly agile, AI native, cloud native, deeply academically gifted founders with businesses. Architecture of the world changes. No longer do we have the big five, but we have the agile fast 5,000 and
5 million.
5 million. And let's say that's not just business consulting. Let's take examples like defense, where you have companies like Anduril and Helsing that are emerging so quickly with consumer grade technology that's driven by highly intelligent algorithms. We're seeing this proliferation. But so in a world that no longer are we trying to manage 50 huge, big corporates, but we have 5 million small organizations. Where are the challenges around data governance, data management, regulatory compliance? What is needed to be built to enable that new entrepreneurial engine for the country?
So
that's exciting.
There's the job.
That's exciting.
There's the job, is the oversight engine, because the solopreneur will not be able to do that depth of analysis because they're, building a business. Great, amazing. What about the individual that is the governance professional that will be able to go, great, not quite like that. You can still do what you want to do, but you have to jump through these hoops to actually make it maybe privacy preserved, privacy enhancing technologies that I'm a massive fan of, privacy preserving techniques that can be built into the systems, data protection by design, data protection by default. It's all in the GDPR. I do think there needs to be a regulatory oversight within legislation. I think the UK does need an AI regulation, which people say the GDPR doesn't work because there hasn't been as much enforcement as people would have wanted. But actually it does work, because you end up this self-regulating, well, one company won't work with another company because we don't think you've done your GDPR due diligence well enough. Why don't we have that self-regulation of, I don't think you've done your AI legislation due diligence well enough for us to buy you yet, come back, or to implement all your solutions. And we are in this place where we're still AI for AI's sake without a good enough use case for it basically being sometimes completely pointless that you're implementing certain AI systems within your organization because you haven't thought it through. It's just you can turn on this toggle and maybe it'll make things super efficient. Who knows? I'm sure there's companies out there that get it completely right. They've mapped it. They know the use case. They're pushing it out and hoping it's going to proliferate with employees and users. It's going to save time, save money. Won't need to bring on the grads. I'm sure there's also other organisations like, let's hit that and maybe they can write emails quicker and we have a more productive workforce. But then you've got to spend time writing the right prompts so the wrong stuff doesn't come out. You don't have hallucinations. And then where's the human in the loop oversight? And I think I've heard somebody say on another podcast, if somebody says human on loop, they fundamentally don't understand AI. I'm not sure that's true or not, but there needs to be some sort of governance in there. So what are the obvious new jobs that will pop out of it? People that understand the governance of AI. Of course there is, and there has to be a lot of them. Loads of them.
I mean, I simplify this. At the moment, AI is really good at telling us stuff. We talk to it, it tells us stuff through generative AI, creates stuff. Very soon when we move to what I term as a broad term, agentic AI, agentic AI is going to start doing stuff for us. And when it starts doing stuff, then the question is, do you allow it just to do it? Or do you want it to say, this is what I'm going to do, yes or no? And that's, for me, that's like my simple mind of thinking, that's agentic AI with human in the loop. Yes, do it. No, don't.
So there's a real counter to this. And I forget who it was that said this, and I saw this at a talk at one point. Agentic AI is great. I think I might have been the CEO of Signal. And she said, I apologize if I got that completely wrong, but what she said was that yes or no for whether the agent's going to do stuff, that yes means you're suddenly opening up to a large language model another one of your systems. So it needs to reach into your inbox, see all your emails, read it and your calendar, and give access to this system of everything in there. Then connect it to another system via sophisticated AI algorithm to then go, you do have a diary opening here, we can do this over here, tie it together. But they're connecting these dots. What's being shared from this system that maybe you didn't want shared with this system, and this system, and this system? So agentic is a great idea, but that oversight of like, how do you connect those dots with the data sharing with each other? And there's no oversight of what the legislation is, and then where is that data, and whose data is it as well? And before you know it, you've breached data protection law without meaning to, and you can't control your agent. And the agent may also get things wrong and think it means you've said yes to something that you actually didn't say yes to, and we're not in that sophisticated place yet. Those companies will pop up and they will get it right. I'm sure they will. Hey, I'd love to run one. I'd be a billionaire within 10 seconds. Great. But you
couldn't handle it. You couldn't handle it.
No.
What an exciting time. I told you. I mean, I'm getting to a point where I'm getting bored of copying and pasting it to ChatGPT. So actually just giving it native MCP or API access, but controlling it. And I mean, what a fascinating time we're at. You've done an amazing job over the last few years.
Thank you.
When I met you in Westminster, I spoke to a few people. Your reputation, your professionalism, and your passion for what you do is known throughout your peers and colleagues. So amazing work. What would you like people to say about Labour's approach to data and AI when they look back at the government? Not just the government, but I know that your area of political control.
Sure. That we got it right. I think it's difficult to know from the outside what a company does on the inside with AI. And so people looking back at, they used AI in the right way, I think that will always be filtered through some sort of media bias that is either for Labour or against Labour or whatever. It will be filtered. So there won't necessarily be a look back, and I guarantee the look back will always be negative for any political party, because that's what's happened, even if they do it right. I know those people that currently are in there that are working towards solutions of benefit, but also in a privacy preserved way, because I've worked with them and they get it. These are amazing people. I really want to say that. I'm visualizing them. I know them. They're brilliant. They're not there to build something that is just this open access crazed, fanatical, how do we manipulate you kind of model. No, they're human beings as well. They want to do good. And within politics in general, as in the staff within the political party that enables the election to happen and for policies to be developed within the party. I'm not talking government, that's a different thing. I'm talking, within the party itself. They are there for the right reason. They're nice people. They don't want to mess you up, screw you over. And they're not going to.
You've operated at a critical time as data itself has become a essential asset to people, business, politics. You've ridden this early phase of the deep analytics of AI bias, large language models. You're at the tip of your tongue are the challenges of data sharing and complexity of that within this new era of cognitive systems. For somebody who was one of the first to deploy GDPR, I have great respect for you, and I think that was a phenomenal piece of work that you were involved with and have continued to do. I sense a real passion around your concerns on social media and algorithmic data distribution and what that's doing to mental health and the population, because I think that you genuinely want to do good by the people and the country. With all of the recent investments in the UK and this idea that the UK is going to become an AI superpower, as it's said, on the global stage, James, do you believe AI is going to take us to a utopia or dystopia?
Utopia, but we may have to go through dystopia first. And I'm not talking 10 years, 20, 50. I'm talking, let's go way off. I did a talk a number of years ago, and my focus was on, and I think I still stand by this at this point, we're in the relative dark ages. For the abilities that technology can afford us, if done in the right way, we could be far more advanced as a species, as a country, as all countries, but we're not yet in this point of being able to agree what the highest and the best net outcome for everyone is. We're still arguing with each other, globally, macro, micro. We still argue with each other about all this without going, what's the evidence-based analysis saying the best approach towards improvement is? When we get the hang of that, then it'll be utopia. The hang of not arguing and going, well, this one's going to spin up and it's against this one and we're going to have the clash and whoever wins is going to become the billionaire and that's the way the world is going to go. Well, I think we're going to have a bit more of that because we are now obsessed and addicted to the sad algorithmic push that we have into our eyeballs and our brain right now. But we have to grow up and get better as individuals and go, no, let's go evidence-based analysis, output. What's the net benefit? Is it positive? Is it negative? If it's positive, move that way. Continue to move that way. Longer, longer, longer. How did we develop to become these bipeds that sit in a podcast room with a microphone and the digital age that we've gotten to? My God. And it's moved so quick from even within the last 50 years to now. Next 50, wow. But I do fear we'll go through dystopia before utopia, and it's on a much, much longer scale that I won't be alive to see.
We are in a computer game.